Hello everybody. In this video, we're going to continue working in our REST API, the Hono app, and we will finish the store procedure, or well, the rest of the function. So far, we've been working with the projects endpoint, and we have the route that pretty much handles the get auth reports, post create a new one. We have the get one specific one to patch it and to delete. The idea now will be to work with the task sections because everything has been saved so far in memory and just working about the different elements for the project itself. But now we need to start working with the task and start making some changes through that. So actually get started. So the first thing that I want to do here in the store, yes, let's just keep it through here. I will minimize my projects and I will create a task L object here. This task object will be a simple array, and the elements of the task itself will be with the IDs, have project ID, that will be the reference to the particular project it belongs to. It will have title of the task and description. The status will be in progress, to do, or done, and we'll keep those somewhere. And we have the created at and updated at pretty much. And we keep that will be the work in the element. Right now, we have the ID start with 1 and 2, 3. So let's, the same way that we did in the next project ID, just as a local reference, let's do the same for task. So the next task ID is actually going to be 4. This way, we will be able to provide a better understanding, the follow-up of the particular task that is going to be moved. We will continue using the clone and now ISO to get a date. Those are really important. List project, project by ID, create project, update project. We have delete project. We're keeping those. And now let's start working with the first one, that is pretty much list task by project. And that would be a cool one. So I have this one already here. So let me just paste it. I will delete this. So this task by project, we will send the project ID. And pretty much what we're doing is filter the task and just getting the task for that particular project. It's as simple as that. Going back to this, I'm thinking that I'm missing something also here that we need to have. And the delete for the project, because now we have tasks related to that particular project. Whenever we delete it, we actually filter out those tasks from our task object. So the same time that we do it for the IDs, we need to do the same for the task. So with this little line, just because it's in memory, we should be able to delete it. We're saying the task will be the same task filter where the project ID is not the ID that we're sent through the project. And to list the project, the task by project, we just send the project ID, and we just need to filter also that, and then we do the map clone in order to do a clone of the object and not have a direct reference. That will work a little bit better. The create task will be very, very similar, and we just save in pretty much the same convention as the other one. So create a task, we need to send the project ID and the input of the task itself. And we have the timestamp, and then we create the object with the information. We have description as optional. That's why we're sending an empty string. Instead of having a null, we'll be sending an empty string. And the status itself, by default, going to be a to-do. After we created that, we update the task ID and we push it. As simple as that. The previous one will be referenced here, and then we update it through here before we actually push it. And we return the task per se already as a clone. The get task by ID, it will be really simple. It's just a simple filter for finding for that particular ID. If that exists, we clone it. If not, we return null. It doesn't have that much. For update a particular task, we have this other one. So first we need to find a task that is actually exists. If it doesn't exist, if the index didn't find it, return null. It's the same convention that we had it before. And then we just do get the current task through the index and we update it. We get everything from the previous one. And then we just update the title, description, if description was shown, and the statuses if that one came. Then we update that particular task and we return the clone of that one. And for last one, we'll be returning the lead task. That we also same convention, verifying the size, filter it out, and if the size the same, we return false, nothing was deleted. If it was changed, we return true, that one was deleted. As simple as that. And with that, we just can handle the particular task that we should have in our element. Now, we already have the project route, and the project routes have most of everything that we need. What we need to handle now is the different route per se that will need it by the task. So we just need to be careful about what else do we need to be providing through here. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to do the nested endpoint, and that will be a cool one. So we have, as I mentioned before, get, the create with the post, and then we get the get one particular ID, but we can also get do something I believe we can do through here. So before we get a specific ID, or actually after we get a specific ID. No, let's do it before. We can do something like this. Let me just paste this part over here. We get that particular ID in the project, and when we ask for the task endpoint, that means that we need to do something about that. And that's where this will to start working. So the first thing that we need to get it, and we need to be careful through here, it will be very similar to getting the ID itself. We need to parse it and request the ID itself. So that, but instead of saving it as ID here, or this one, let's give it a little more context. This actual or project ID. That's the ID that we're sending through here. And then we just can do the simple project is get project by ID, sending, or project ID itself, right? Now, if that project doesn't exist, we just need to return that, yeah, not found, project not found itself. So before we actually going to get the task, we need to think about, well, before I verify that a specific task for a specific project, I need to verify that project actually exists. And that's what we're doing through here. And we are getting the ID itself for the parameter being sending in the URL, right? Now that we have that, now we can say, okay, let's say the project exists. Let's have our payload. That will be pretty much the await parse JSON body for the context itself. This will allow us, okay, now let's get the task itself. And what we need to do through here is we need to validate the details. But well, we don't have a validate task create. For that, we actually need to go to our validation. And we keep a pause here. Remember, we are in a project. We have that error because details not being used and validate task create doesn't exist. So let's go back to utils validation. And let's start adding the extra validation that we are pending. So we have different validation on the top. We have the param schema, cons, that one is there. We have the project schema, create schema. I don't know why I cannot make this smaller, but yeah, let's keep it as it is. We have the project patch schema, right? Let's make this smaller here. We have the parse ID parameter. But before that, we need to do the schema for the task itself. Because here we have just the project patch and project create. That means that we need to have the task patch and the task create schema. The cool thing is I already have those, and I will paste in those in a minute, but using a little bit this definition. So let's actually expand this. So we have a project create. Let's do through here. Copy this, paste it here, and there will be our task create schema. And for a task create, we need a title. That's what we have in our function. We need to keep this element. We have title, description, status. That's what we need. So we have a title. That's a string, and it says task title is required. We need to trim it, and we say, well, yeah, minimum one. That's the minimal size of the title. And we say task title is required, right? We have description. If you have error, we just say description must be a string and it's optional. Yeah, that's cool. And the other one that we need to have is the status. And for that one, we will be doing a string first. For that string, we will say if there is an error, we need to say um, let's do status message here. That one I will actually not through here. And I will show you that status message what it is in a minute. We have status message, and we have um, we need to add a specific validation. Something that I like to do and to have something here is that I just want to have a specific constants because I want my status to be only three different values to do in progress and done. So usually what I do, I create a new file, constant.js, and that one has that one through here. And that will allow me on my validation, do a simple import that's from constants. And that will allow me to do something different here. So it will allow me to refine my value itself. So I will work this in a minute. For now, I will say that my dot refine will say, well, my value, whatever I send through here, should be in my statuses, that is an array, included. Includes the value, And my error message will see my status message that I will create in a minute. After this, we know that we are sending by default is a to do, so we do this actually as an optional element, right? So here I need to remove this comma and just define it through here. So status will be a string. The status message, let's actually put that on the top. I will create another constant. So status must be one of, and I will make it my my join with comma spaces. So here we're saying, yeah, that will be, that status will include, it should include that particular value. If not, send that message, and that will be an optional percent. As simple as that. Now, the other one that we need to do here is the task patch schema. For that, let's get our project one. Let's change just the name. The field one will be title. And this will be task title. Must be a non-empty string. Trim it. Minimum one. Task title must be a non-empty string, right? And optional. Description must be a string. And the only thing that we need to add through here is our status percent. Very similar that we did it through here. So let's do enter here, and we just add the status side. And the same. Refine. It should include one of these tax statuses, and that will be optional. Then we have the super refine. That pretty much we have a custom body provided one field to update. As simple as that, right? We need to say that, well, if I send an empty object, I will not do nothing about this. That's pretty much what we have. Now, what else we need to have here? And I think that should be it, probably. What else I'm missing? Okay, let's go to the validation section. So we have function validate project create, function validate project patch. We will do something similar for task create and task patch. Let's put those in. And it will be the same, validated with schema, the payload, and with those particular one. That way we export those, and the export can actually be here. And we can go to the validation. Where is the validation? Here. We can do validate task create, comma, validate task patch. And that will make our details working in our project's route that we need there. Now, some extra things that we need to verify, now that we believe working, if there's an error with the validation, that means the details length will be bigger. And we just need to send that to our error object that we already created, right? If not, we just need to create our task. And we need to send the location on the header. So for here, we just do task create task and header added the location with API task and the task ID that we just create, and return send resource from our context task and I forgot the name, the number of the response, the type of response that we're getting. In this one 201 means object created. So, and this is the same resource that we have before. Now, create task doesn't exist here. That means that we need to import it from our store because we already added. So from here, we just need to do uh, the extra elements that we added. And I forget which one we added. We added the, oh, let's actually just add that one for now. We'll add it one by one. Create task, right? Cool. That will handle, and I lost it right here, I believe. Yes. Whenever we get the project ID task, that will get the task for that particular project. And we'll do, and it's using pretty much the same convention that we're doing an object that we have it for the other ones. With the extra validation that we need to verify first if that project actually exists. The next one that we need to be handling through here in the route will be the actually create task. So where we have the actually I'm doing something wrong. Yeah, this is actually a post. If we are creating a task, this should be a post. This should not be a get, right? That's we need to be careful with that section, and we need to be careful how we actually handle it. I'm sorry for this. I was thinking in get the task, but at the end, what I did is just create a task. Let's actually do now the get a task. So if I call my projects, I get request, and I call my ID task, then actually now do the, and this should be plural. Remember the nouns. Let's send the context, arrow function, and we need to do pretty much the same at the beginning. And now we're copying code here. Probably we can export that like get project or something. But well, we need to do the same. If that actually exists, the next part will be really simple. Well, list task by project, and we do from that project ID, and we send the collection. Of course, in order to make this work, we need to have it here, list task by project, right? Cool. Where I am. Yes. Post ID task and get ID task. That will help for both. Now we have the get ID and patch ID. That's for the project directly. And the only thing that we can do here, probably, mm, and the project delete. And I think that should be it. Yeah, that should be everything that we need to here. So I think we don't need the validate task patch. That will be in another route. So we need to add some task in the project's route just because that complexity regarding those. Now, for the deletion of the task, we don't need to call the project itself. We just need to delete a specific task. And there's no correspondence with the projects. We added only the get and the create because those are have a dependency of the project itself. But for the patch and the delete, you don't have that dependency. So because you don't have that dependency, what we can do here is we can actually have another route. That will be our task route. So let's actually create it. Let's call these tasks. Yes. Let me import a bunch of stuff that I have here that will be used. We need to import Hono, delete task, get task by ID, and update task for data store. We need to parse JSON body, API error, send resource, parse ID, and validate task patch from our validation. So the first thing is we create the task route. And from the task route, we say, well, for task route, if I get an ID, I need to parse the ID. and get a task by that particular ID. Then we need to do patch that particular ID. It will be very similar as the other patch that we already know. I'm just copy and pasting here because I want to show you that it's a pattern that we are having. We need to verify the ID. We need to parse the JSON body and validate that JSON body is actually valid. If there's details, we send the error. If not, we should update it. If this actually false, not found, there's an error. If not, we just return that particular updated task. And then we can just do here, delete the specific ID. It will the same. Check parse the ID parameter, do the delete itself, and if it was not deleted, just do an error. As simple as that. And we need to export the default task object itself, right? So this will allow us to handle that particular object the way they're supposed to. Now that we exported this one, we need to actually call it inside our API. And for our API to use it, we need to go all the way to the index and pretty much copy this one, but instead of project will be task, right? And we are telling it that, well, for the route project, well, no, now the route task. And we'll be using this one over here. And I think that should be it. Let me just verify one particular thing because I'm thinking, mm, well, I think that should be it. Let's run this project. npm run that. Okay, it's working in 87. Perfect. And we can verify if this is actually working. So let's do the get all projects. Those are there. Cool. Let's get one particular project. Let's duplicate that and let's call this rename get project by ID. Let's get actually one. Yeah, it's working with the data element. Perfect. Let's copy this one and let's do duplicate. Let's change it to get task by project ID. And that one, get task by project ID. Let me do one here. Let me save it to keep it as a one. Perfect. Let me do one here. Save it. We are getting that one. But if we actually call task, I'll call it, we should get it now. The two tasks that belongs to that particular project with their meta account and everything because we have a response object already created. This is actually pretty cool. So this will allow us to now use the rest of the elements. I mean, I saving those to have those through here. So I will be having the one that I needed. Let's duplicate this one. And let's change this to post to project tasks. And this will actually be, let me save it. And let's call it, rename, create task. Right. There will be after get task by project ID, create task it requires a project ID that should allow me, if I send it like this, should fail. Yeah, malform a JSON. I don't send anything. So let me do body. JSON. Let me set the JSON as an empty. This should fail. Yeah, title should be there. So let's do title. Um, call this as new task by API. Description is optional. Status is optional. If we send this, yeah, it give you a new task to project one. That means if I create it, if I call this one more time, this should go all the way to 3, become getting the task for the project number 1. Look at that, right there. And that's the way that we should be working or testing our APIs endpoints. Let's do the patch one. Let's duplicate the patch for the project. And let's call this one task. And let's call this let's call description to task number 2. This should actually work. Let's see. Yeah. Our second task have a new description. Oops, I actually changed the project. I didn't change the task. So task. Let me save it. Okay. One more time. Okay. So my task with ID2 belongs to my project 1, have a new description. That means if I get the description by that project ID, instead of having collect new screenshot, replace old portfolio, I should have the new one that I just patched. There you go. Cool. Let's do one more time. Duplicate the delete project. Let's change this to delete task. Let's change this to task. And let's actually delete that one. If I send it, 204, no content. That means the deletion was successful. If I get task by that project ID, this should not appear anymore. And this should be count 2 again. Yep. If I try to delete it again, this should give me an error. Yeah, that's not found. That doesn't exist. Cool. So that will allow us to move a little faster when we already understand a little bit the validation that we did previously, how to add an object that is dependent of the other one. So I will stop the video here. I think for the next class, for the next week, we will talk about the database connection and we'll do a database and we'll actually deploy. I'm thinking doing the database and more likely probably the authentication piece in order to make this deployment. So let me just add all the changes, put it here, added task, endpoint, and logic. And let me think of that. So what I need for this one, I need your GitHub URL for the task that elements. If you change the way that, so some of you guys change it from project to other endpoints. If you did that, create another child element that belongs to, like if you have a cart, do like, I don't know, rental or whatever, or you have food, different type of food. I don't know. Look for a way to do hierarchical data that you send it. That way I should be able to test that particular project itself. So what I need is just the GitHub URL with those changes and with the tasks that you actually have enabled in your project. And you're copying the one that I've been doing. Yeah, just change the tasks that are not pretty much the same as I had it here in my store. Have new ones at least. That will be enough. So I hope that you actually like it. I think we can deploy it as it is, but just because it doesn't have security, I don't want to do it, to be sincere. That's why we are not deploying yet this part. I want to add the security part before we actually push it to the world before we do it. But for now, I think that should be enough. So I hope that you like it. We follow the same pattern as before. We added a child element. We did best practices regarding a lot of the elements that we already had, and that took a lot of time in the previous video. Those elements we already have here, like some validations and design response, create the error object, those kind of elements, we just reuse them. And we just add the task itself. Now we add the one that need to have some routes that need to be nested, like to get a task for a particular project. Of course, you need to call it through the project endpoint, but the one that you need for like deletion, you call the task endpoint itself. So that thing, I hope that you like this video, to be sincere. If not, let me know. Any question, any doubt, don't hesitate to reach me, guys. Happy coding, everybody.